Welcome to the Alcohol Tipping Point podcast. I'm your host, Deb Maisner. I'm a registered nurse, health coach, and alcohol-free badass. I have found that there's more than one way to address drinking. If you've ever asked yourself if drinking is taking more than it's giving, or if you've found that you're drinking more than usual, you may have reached your own alcohol tipping point. The Alcohol Tipping Point is a podcast for you to find tips, tools, and thoughts to change your drinking. Whether you're ready to quit forever or a week, this is the place for you. You are not stuck and you can change. Let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Carrie May. Carrie is a nurse practitioner. Hello to a fellow nurse. And she is also a certified addiction recovery coach with a She Recovers designation. She is the founder of both Brave and Chicago AF. Chicago AF is her nonprofit sober community, which hosts weekly support meetings and alcohol-free social events. And Carrie is passionate about normalizing sobriety and curating space for authentic, sober connection. So, welcome to the show, Carrie.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you for inviting me. Super excited to be here.
I'm so glad you're here because we have mutual friends in Mary Tilson from Sun and Moon Sober Living, and you've done
Love
some
her.
retreats. Yeah, and you have some upcoming ones, so we'll get to that. And then Heather Lowe from Ditch the
Yes.
Drink.
Yes, totally.
Adore her. And this
Same.
is the first time we've met. So I'm excited to hear about your story and your
Sure.
experience with drinking and what brought you to where you're at right
Sure.
now.
Yeah. So I'll just start. I'll start in high school. I started drinking a little bit in high school and progressed through college and was kind of, if you want to call it normal, kind of a normal drinker all through college. And then I pretty much drank my whole adult life. I remember just drinking one glass of wine at night. And I remember one time deciding I was going to have a second glass of wine and just kind of like saying it out loud a little bit. But, to my husband, just saying, I think I'm going to have a second glass. And he said, Really? Do you think you need that? And I thought, yeah, I do, and that was okay for a really long time. I pretty much, my drinking didn't become problematic till about 2 to 3 years before it stopped. So I say 2 years. My husband says 3 years. So it was probably three. And something happened, like my switch, like they say, flipped. My switch completely flipped. So I went from truly just being able to control how much I was drinking to not being able to control how much I was drinking. And it was very gradual. I'm very grateful I didn't have like a traumatic event. I didn't have like a major life stressor. I've always had anxiety and social anxiety. And at that time, we had moved one town over, just literally like a 7-minute move, but we really, really wanted it for better schools for our kids. And so I remember feeling more anxious and feeling kind of like I was back in high school, like wanting to fit in with the soccer moms and like just all those feelings. And so I know my drinking kind of revved up a little bit at that point, but I didn't really think too much about it. And so then it just became very problematic with my husband, and he was not tolerating it anymore. I had tried to moderate. I tried everything. I tried by myself. I tried all the rules, no, only one drink here, only on the weekends, only on vacation. And it didn't work. I just kind of kept spiraling like more and more and more. And so then my husband actually came home and had seen a divorce attorney that day. And I didn't realize he was home early, which is really unusual for him. He doesn't come home early. And so at that time, I literally just kind of threw my hands up in the air and just said, Take me in. Just take me in. And I knew like I didn't need detox. Because I'm a medical professional, I knew I didn't, but I knew if I did not get help right then and there, I would convince myself the next day that I couldn't do it because I could not do it. I could not say that I had a problem with drinking. I couldn't really, I don't know. And I had tried alone for a really long time. And so it's interesting. So he actually took me to the emergency department where I currently work. I didn't work there at that time. And I just had fluids and, whatever. And really just fluids. And then a really nice provider, thankfully, switched shifts because they were just going to send me home. and somebody came in and and was actually compassionate to me and the fact that my drinking was so problematic that I told my husband to please take me to a healthcare facility. And I'm so grateful that this person, like it like gives me chills, was actually kind to me and said, "You know what? I think like we're starting a new program. I think that you would be a really good candidate for this." And it was inpatient residential treatment. And so I think that you should give it a try, you know? And of course, like I had a job, I have children, I can't do this, I can't whatever. And I said, yes, I think I need to do that. And so I, of course, wanted to go home first because I wanted to drink because there's no way I could do that. And they said, no, no, you should go straight there. They'll bring you anything that you need. And so I did. I went into inpatient treatment for 23 days, and it was the best decision I ever made for myself because I could not stop drinking. And they brought AA meetings into treatment, and I didn't want to participate in AA. I didn't want to go to AA. I had a very big professional chip on my shoulder, like just with being in the healthcare profession. I felt like it made me, I don't know, made my story more special or more hard. It's not. It's everybody's story is their story. But when I got out of treatment, I couldn't wait to get out, and then I was so scared. Like, I just remember my husband took me to lunch, and I was, like, trembling. I was like, "I don't know anybody sober. I don't know a single sober individual." The only person I knew was my aunt who lives in New York. So I had no one, and so I did. I went to an AA meeting the next morning at 6:30 in the morning. I don't mean this, like, to sound anything, but I figured professional women would be at this meeting because it was 6:30 in the morning, and I really felt like if I could surround myself with other professional people that had an issue with drinking, that maybe I could, I don't know, be okay. So anyway, that became my home group, and I'm so grateful I walked through that door. I don't know how I did. I did it by myself, and so I have a very strong AA background. I have 8.5 years of sobriety, but I also realized that I needed more than AA, and I needed more than what was going on there, and so I kept trying. I wanted to find more women. I wanted to find more moms. I didn't have any, like, all my mom friends drank, maybe not to the degree that I did. They didn't know to what degree I did, but we all drank together. So anyway, and so then I just kept seeking more. Like that's what led me to developing my nonprofit. But I needed to connect with more people. So I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, and I live in Arlington Heights, which is a suburb of Chicago. I pushed myself to go down into the city to like different non-alcoholic events. I found some events through She Recovers in the very early days, and I was just struck. I was like, "Thank you. Yes, there's more people out there," because there really weren't podcasts then. There wasn't as much talk at that time. There was Home with Laura and Holly, and they were my podcast friends. I was like, "My family thinks I'm crazy because I talk about my friends are my podcast friends." But it's just like that was the beginning of the story. I continue to work on my sobriety every day. I really try to help others so that I can I love to help other people get sober. I really because I felt so not confident in my sobriety and not proud of my sobriety my first 3 years. I really like to help other people, especially women, own it sooner than I did because it was really hard for me. So, it was very hard for a couple years, but it's amazing. Of course, it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story
Yeah,
and your background and everything. So, were you working as a nurse then or a nurse practitioner?
yeah.
And
So I've
yeah,
been a
tell me
nurse
about
practitioner.
that.
Yeah, so I've been a nurse practitioner for actually over 20 years.
Okay.
I went straight. I worked 1 year in nursing and then went straight to get my master's. And so, yes, I was working. And so I took a medical leave. But I was working in a different emergency department. And I actually was working in a private practice at that time because it fit with my kids' schedules as well. So, yeah, that's what I was doing at that time.
And do you think, I mean, because worked as a nurse too, and actually
Hmm.
worked inpatient on a med surg unit at the
Me too.
VA. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But a part of our patient panel was detoxing
Mhm.
veterans, and
Mhm.
then I'm sure you saw a lot of people come in who needed a medical detox. Do you
Yep.
and just being in the medical field, I think we see the rock bottom, we see the extreme of alcohol
Yes.
use disorder, right? So
Yep.
everybody else looks normal and like they're doing okay. What's your experience like being a nurse practitioner, having a problem, seeing how the healthcare community treats people with alcohol use disorder? Like,
Yeah.
can you talk to that? I would
Yeah.
love to hear yours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So one thing I'll just say from like a personal standpoint, like when I was getting help, when I was inpatient, there was pushed on me to report it like to the board. And that really was so traumatic to me because I was so scared when I was in treatment. And I didn't know like up from down from left. My mom had to come in to take care of my children. Like it was really like, and I didn't, my drinking, I was very high functional and I didn't miss a day of work. It had nothing with the reason I sought treatment was not because of my job. It was because of my personal relationships. And so, there kept being this like intense pressure for me to report it to the board. And I'm really grateful that I didn't because it wasn't, it didn't, there was not a need for that, and I kept being told I was going to relapse. I kept being told like, from the people that wanted me to report it to the board and even from my primary care provider when I like followed up with her the first time after treatment and I was so scared that she would find out and she did because I sent my records. She told me I would relapse. And so, and what I've seen is just really sad. So I feel that like in society, like overall, we've made like huge leaps and bounds with like the non-alcoholic movement, with creating space, with the beverages, with acceptance, with all of it, but not in the medical community. So I'm also trained as a hospitalist. And so I did that for a couple of years when I very first got sober. That was a really, really good career move for me because it kept my brain like super fresh and gave me like something to focus on, like just very intensely. So I've been able to have the honor to care for patients from the beginning all the way through discharge. And so I feel that we miss such an opportunity while patients are hospitalized to help transition them to resources. I feel like people talk about them as, as drunks and another drunk here, another drunk there, and giving report to one another. There is just such a lack of compassion and, even when they come into the ER, I feel that the treatment is very inhumane by a lot of providers and just the staff. And I think we need to work on that collectively.
I do too. I mean, I feel like because we've only seen the extremes and there was like this old school labeling that, yeah, we've just done a disservice. And I also think
Hmm.
like I've been working in preventative health and in a wellness department for the last 9
Hmm.
years, and we are all
That's
about
great.
yeah, but it's so ironic too because we're all about prevention. Like, we do health
Hmm.
screenings and we treat pre-hypertension, pre-diabetes, we're checking your cholesterol, your
Right,
weight, all that. We're trying to get all this preventative healthcare and so that you don't get further along the line, but we don't do that for alcohol. We don't do that for
right,
addiction. You don't
right,
get medical treatment until you're rock bottom, till you're going into the ER.
right. And then there's still such a stigma. And so if it gets labeled in your chart, I see firsthand that, if you have had a problem and you've sought help for it, now that stays with you and it's still there. There's a lot of stigma associated with it from a medical standpoint.
And what do you think we can do? Like, what needs to change?
I think more education. I don't know what the medical schools and the other providers are currently, but I teaching, but I don't think there's a focus on it. And we know so much about alcohol's harmful effects now, and essentially none is good for you. And I just think really being able to capture people when they come into the hospital, and not even just for detox, when they're coming in and you can clearly see that they're having liver issues, that they're having all of these issues, to like have the conversations there as well, like from the inpatient standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely starting, like, with your primary care provider
Yes,
and just recognizing, like, "Oh, you there are other options. You could start on some medication."
yes,
Interesting. Oh, it still makes me sad, though.
me
I
too.
mean, I it's just glacially I
Yes,
think it's changing, like, I'm starting to see more and more medical organizations come out with their new recommendations, like, no amount of alcohol is
yep,
safe for your heart, for your health, period,
right,
right?
right,
But I think it does keep people stuck and afraid, to your point, like, afraid of seeking help because it's on your record, because
right,
you could lose your job.
right. And even after I sought treatment, and it was so important for me to have that label taken out of my chart. Like I like kind of begged my provider to please unclick like whatever it was, like alcohol use disorder or alcohol whatever, because I just didn't want to further be like as I seek treatment down the road. I am sober. I don't drink alcohol anymore. And you know,
Right, right, like it's resolved. I mean, you can
yes.
take things off your problem list, right?
Yes, exactly. So I just
S
think lots of education.
And what about a person that is hearing this and they're like, "Well, fuck that, I'm not gonna go in," because it keeps a lot of people from
I
going
know.
in or talking to their doctor. What would you say to someone who is struggling and they are afraid of those other repercussions with their insurance, with their job, all of that?
Yeah. I would just encourage them to still be honest, to still talk about it with their provider, to still actively like have the discussion, what are you gonna mark in my just to have like an open discussion with the provider about it and moving forward. Because I hear that so much from like people in my community and just people that I know that are alcohol free, that we're never honest with their provider. We're not honest with their therapist about what the real issue is. And so I just think we just have to, like we are in other aspects, just being more loud about it and just continuing to have more conversation to make it more normalized.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like it's almost like another choose your hard.
Yes,
Like, would you
exactly.
rather get help and overcome this and feel better and, have all these improved mental and physical health
100%.
outcomes? Would you rather have that or have this on your record or have
Yes,
this, it's like, would I rather do something for my life, for myself, or have like a label on my
exactly.
record?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think to your point, I think that's good that and just telling people like to be honest, to talk to your doctor and to ask like, "Hey, do I have to have this on
Yes.
my diagnosis list?
Yes.
Does that need to be there?" And because
Right.
they do have the ability to remove it.
100%. And that
Awesome.
did
Okay.
happen to me. That happened to me also, is I saw a different provider and had that honest discussion with her, and she took it off my list. So
Yeah.
I just was very honest about it, and just, I was a little nervous to talk about it, but we had the talk and it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so you're doing inpatient detox now as a nurse practitioner, as
No,
a
I work in the emergency department.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just an emergency department
Oh,
provider.
okay. I thought you were doing hospitalist too, or
I
what does
was
that tell
before.
me? Okay,
Oh, so
okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I'm back in the ER. So my career as an NP has primarily been in the emergency department for a couple years. I was
Wow.
doing hospitalist, which I love, and I still moonlight there, but I'm back in the ER.
So what are you seeing in the ER now as far as alcohol use and detox, and what does that look like?
So, we see it all. We can see people like actively vomiting blood to like, slumped in their chair to just everything, to just being belligerent, or a lot of people coming in because their family members are wanting them to get help. And what I'm also seeing is that there's fewer and fewer like inpatient options for people. Even the place that I sought treatment and then I took meetings back in for about 3 years closed down. And so I'm finding it even harder. to find like referrals, places where people can go because there's not really that many beds lately. So it's hard. And my particular hospital doesn't even offer detox. They'll transfer you to somewhere else if you need detox. So I'm finding it becoming like more and more specialized and a little bit harder to get care, to be honest.
Mm. Yeah. So what would you say to someone who is struggling and they're wanting to quit drinking?
I would definitely encourage them to get help, like get professional help. If you feel like you need inpatient or like a day type program or an outpatient type program to find out what facilities are in your community, and then make a call to the admissions director and see like if you feel that you need that level of care. And if you feel like you need other care, to just seek out any sort of help, like even just telling another sober person, talking with your family, go to any sort of meeting, a 12-step meeting. And there's a lot of different communities now. There's so much community. But my biggest advice is to do it in person. Like if you can,
Mm.
talk to somebody in person because it
And why
just
do you say that? Yeah.
because I think the accountability and the addressing it is just like you've ripped off all the Band-Aids. Like you have just your shell that has been protecting you for so long, and that shell that is telling you and protecting that you can still drink, things are still okay. Now you've said it out loud and you've said it to a person that can help you find what you need because there's so many resources.
Mhm. And then so you became passionate, like, when did you start doing, like, your coaching and Chicago AF? Can you talk about, like, now how
Sure.
you're helping people, what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So my first 3 years of sobriety were really focused on me and like figuring out how I was going to be sober, what I was going to do, how I was going to move forward, socializing, like practicing socializing. I love how you talk about practicing sobriety. And so then during the pandemic, actually, I actually got furloughed during the pandemic because no one was coming to the ER because everybody was afraid of COVID. So it was very interesting that they didn't need me. So I had extra time on my hands and I just decided to become a recovery coach. And so I went through that training. I kind of always like to have like some sort of project in the mix. I was like, do I get a PhD or do I do this? Or so I'm just like, so I decided to do that. And that's where like the concept of Brave came from, which is my professional recovery coaching practice. And it was interesting with the name just because I have a lot of anxiety and I feel like anything I do, I have to push through that anxiety, like even to talk to you, to like, to go downtown and push myself when I don't know anybody and show up at these events to just do it. Like, just do it. And so I started my coaching during the pandemic and then organically came upon this idea of hiking with another woman that I had met in sobriety. I wasn't looking for it. It just like hit me. I went on this spontaneous trip with her to Sedona and I didn't really know her, so I was a little nervous. And the way we were able to connect was like insane to me. Like just being able to have this common goal to be like hiking on this trail, to open up to one another, and just the sense of comfort and fun. And like we did it together. I just kind of was like, I have to do this again. Like I feel like I really want to do this again and create this offering for other women. And so that's kinda what I did. So, I've done a few.
Is that what, like, adventure recovery
Yeah,
coaching is?
yeah.
Okay.
So it's essentially just getting people off grid, outside, doing some sort of, like, combined exercise activity together or adventure together. With mine, I do hiking. So we really hike. Like, I pick challenging hikes, or my husband helps too. Like one hike we did in Yosemite was actually, like, hard, and I didn't know that. I thought it was, like, moderate. So we're all, like, kind of, like, huffing and puffing. But we did it, right? We got to the top. It was so awesome. And like afterwards, my husband was like, I knew you guys could do it. You were fine. But it's that like sense of accomplishment of doing something together. And it's kind of a metaphor for sobriety, right? Like you can do it together. And so And I love the way when you're hiking, you don't have to look at the person. You can just hike and walk and talk. And it's very organic. And it's very organic from a coaching standpoint, too, because I really try to make sure I touch base with every single person that comes in some, like, they may not know I'm doing it, but I'm like walking with them, or like I'll go back, and just kind of, I don't know. It's just like a really cool way of organically doing group coaching.
Mm.
And it's really fun because then those people have really like achieved this accomplishment together, and they stay in touch. Some groups stay in touch more than others, but it's really the endorphins get flowing, and I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it shows through, and you have some exciting trips planned too, right?
Yeah,
What tell us
yeah.
what you're doing for 2025.
So 2025, I'm going to Nepal with Mary Tilson, and I'm so pumped for that. I'm really, really excited. And I've never done a trek like that before, so I'm really excited to train for it. And I it's just going to be amazing. So we're doing the Everest Base Camp trek, and she has
Oh,
done this before, and so I'm just really excited to do this with her.
yeah, that is so cool. Well, I wanna go back to anxiety because you said,
Yeah,
like, that's something you struggle with. That was something you were self-medicating with
hmm, for
alcohol. So
sure.
how do you manage your anxiety now? Do you have
Yeah,
any tips there?
yeah. So that's good too. And yeah, so I take medication for anxiety. And when I was in treatment, I actually got diagnosed with depression as well. So I knew I had generalized anxiety disorder. And then I thought maybe my depression was just an acute phase. But I have seen an addiction psychiatrist, actually an NP, a nurse practitioner, ever since I got sober. And I still am being treated for both. And so I take my medications. And when I initially got sober, I also saw an addiction therapist for a year or two. I threw the kitchen sink at it when I first got sober. Everything that they recommended that I do, I did. I was like, Carrie is no longer in charge. Carrie's method is not working. I took naltrexone. They recommended I take naltrexone. That kind of really threw everything at it. But with the anxiety, I used to like pregame with a couple of drinks before I did things. And so no more pre-gaming, not with alcohol at least. I pre-game differently. So I feel like when I'm about to like go out and do something social, I'll get like a Topo Chico or have like a non-alcoholic beverage or a Diet Coke, and still kind of like try to do a similar kind of routine to just kind of like, get myself together and everything. And with my anxiety too, I talk about things that are going on. If I'm not feeling well, I say that. Like, actually, when I got back from my last retreat, I felt very anxious for about 2 weeks afterwards. I have no idea why. There was no reason. So my husband recognized it, and we talked about it. We take a walk every evening. So I really do a lot of self care in the form of napping.
I love napping, girl. That is my jam. Yes.
Me too. I'm telling you, because I used to check out with alcohol, at the
Yeah.
time I did not know that that's what I was doing,
Yeah.
but I was checking out. And so when I need to check out or not, I love to nap.
I do too. I've taken it to a whole other level. So,
Tell me.
okay. Well, I will tell you because anyone who knows me well knows that I love to nap. Anyway, I have my daughter's got these weighted blankets. Remember when they
Yep.
were
Oh,
in?
yeah, my
So
daughter has
I
one
just
too.
pulled out one of those weighted blanket. And then I have like this fleece kind of scarf, but it goes right over my eyes and my ears. And I'm just laying flat. I'll put on like a guided meditation.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. I want to check out. I want to leave the world. Even if it's 10 minutes,
Yes.
it's that checking out.
Yeah. And so it kind of it became funny in my family. Even if I like couldn't take a nap, if I like lay on my bed and I have the blanket up above my head, it's don't let mom be. Just let
Yeah.
mom be. So
I
that just
love
kind
you.
of like became our signal.
Yeah,
And it works.
I know. And do you sometimes work your day around like, when am I
Oh, I
gonna
yes,
nap? I'm like a
I love to
baby.
nap. It is like a baby, but it feels really good, and I feel better for it. And like I'm not ashamed. I love
Good, good.
it.
That's so funny. I was just thinking, like, I had to pull an all-dayer yesterday. But I've talked to people that even like, if you have to work, obviously, it's
Right.
hard to nap, but, like, if you can just even go to your car for
Yeah.
10 minutes and close
Yeah.
your eyes,
Yeah.
or at your desk, or go to
Yeah.
the bathroom, well,
Yeah.
like, whatever that looks like for you. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry I got so excited about napping.
No, I love that because I never like I'm so glad.
You met another napper who's
About
quite as
another
into
napper,
it.
totally. I really think it helps my sobriety and it, it helps me manage stress and I rejuvenate and it's great.
I
Mm,
think that they just did a study, I know because a couple people sent it to me, that said, like, people who nap live longer.
good.
Yeah, my friend was like, "You're gonna live forever." But you know what? To your point, like, I think that people are not ashamed, but, like, we're just in a society where busy and being productive
Yes.
is like a badge of honor, and it
Yeah.
seems quote unquote "lazy"
Yes.
to say like, "Oh, I like to nap. I like to take a
Yes.
time out."
Yes. I do too. And so even with my husband, because he is just like an energizer bunny. And I mean I am too, but I we just had to like he totally respects the nap now.
Okay. Who are you and your husband now, if you don't mind
Oh,
talking
thank you for
about that
asking.
relationship? Yeah.
We're better, but that took a really long time. It was so hard to come home from treatment and like be in my house because my daughter was 11 at that time. And she was like the Spitfire that that pushed his buttons to get me because she was like, I'm not tolerating this anymore. Like, you're
Mm,
going or or we're going, I mean, she's a little firecracker in a great way. I mean,
yeah.
thankfully. And so that took a lot of repair. And so it was really hard for a couple of years and just, I couldn't figure out how to be. I just remember just like being home and like, when you talk about like, some people have like bewitching hours or I was so uncomfortable in my skin and I was so uncomfortable in my home because we had problems and they were all directly to my drinking, all of it. Like we've been married like 25 years now and we never had any problems before my drinking got bad ever. And so thankfully like we've worked through it and it's better. It's much better. But that took a really big hit on our relationship.
Mm, yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
My daughter, my youngest, was like a little police officer
Yeah.
too for me, like
Yeah.
really keeping an
Oh,
eye on
yeah.
my drinking and really overly invested.
Yep.
To the point where I just had to tell her, like, "This is my thing. Like, this is
Yep.
my responsibility. I don't
Yes.
want you to worry about this." Like, this is for me.
Right.
And now she's my biggest, like,
Same.
cheerleader and everything.
Same. Yep. And that was really hard too. So my daughter and I went and had therapy together after I got sober. And I just kind of remember at one point, like, kind of feeling so guilty and like the victim and whatever. But I just remember being like, enough. We're not going to like bring my drinking up anymore. Like, it is like we are fixing the problem. But like I don't want to feel that it's everything is my fault still. I just kind of remember being like, we need to take this like because it had been quite some time and I felt like I was still like getting heat from it. And
Mm.
I also decided when I was in treatment that I was going to be an open book about it, like an open
Mm.
discussion when I got out of treatment. And so we talk about everything in this house. Like all of it, and we're like a very safe, sober space for what if people do need help, like they know they can come here and whatever shape you're in, and so that's been really interesting with my son because my son was a lot younger at that time, so he doesn't really remember when I drank. But yeah, just being open about it with with the family has been really a blessing, and I don't really know how I did that, and I'm really glad I did that.
Yeah, yeah. What are other ways to kinda deal with that mom guilt or parental guilt?
Keep talking about it and keep working through it because it's real. It's real and mine lasted for a long time. I feel like I've worked through that now, but I would just remember I I think talking with other moms and talking with other
Mm.
sober moms because at that time in my life, I know I mentioned that, but I didn't have any friends that were also moms. And my sponsor is incredible, but he's an 82-year-old man. And so when I was talking to, he just couldn't relate. You can't relate on a mom level unless you're a mom or a parent or whatever. So
Mm.
to just
Yeah.
truly just work through it. Just keep going. It will get better and keep talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's key too. And I
Yeah.
think, I always say this to moms who feel guilt and I guess as a reminder to myself, like our kids need to see that we're not perfect
Yes.
and see that we do make mistakes,
Yes.
but also we overcome. Like we
Yes.
can change. Anyone has
Yes.
the ability to change. And so to see your progression, I'm sure with more and more perspective, like your daughter's going to be like, my mom is a badass.
Totally. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, she is my biggest supporter. Like we're getting ready to do like a no booze cruise with Chicago app. And she took off work and wants to come
Oh,
again,
love
again.
it.
Yeah. And it's just, and to have her like support, my sobriety activities. And that's everything. That's it.
Yeah. And it's never too late, even if you have
No,
adult
never,
children,
never.
grandchildren. Like, I think even seeing people change because I see a lot of people who are older, who are in their 50s, 60s,
Mm-hmm.
70s, who are
Yep.
now like, okay, I'm
Yes.
done with drinking.
Yes.
What does that look like? And that's okay too. Like good for
Hmm.
you. It's never
Good.
too late to change
Absolutely.
your drinking.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, tell me about Chicago AF.
So Chicago AF, so I was really excited that that finally got off the ground a little bit because I tried a couple of things before then that did not. So
Like
I
to get community
yes, to
in
get
locally,
community.
in person. Okay, got
Yes,
it.
in person. And so because all that I really knew of was AA at that time. And so I did like Meetup. I don't know if you remember when like Meetup was a thing, but I remember like creating like an account on Meetup and like some people said they would come and I was so excited and then nobody came. And then I remember another time it just being like one woman that came. And so you're kind of like having like a blind date with somebody you don't know. Like, so I tried a couple of things and then finally, because with Zoom, we were able to like connect and take it from there. And I it's been super cool. We've hosted a monthly social event, alcohol free, ever since we started in October of 2020.
Oh,
And
awesome.
and we have a weekly meeting on Mondays. It's free for everybody. There's no fees or anything. It's a nonprofit and it's my way of like giving back to the community, but it's also my way of creating a life that I need. I when I got sober, I kind of said goodbye to my mom, like the people I was hanging out with, because I didn't want to hang out with people that were drinking. I could not hang out with people that were drinking. It was not an option for me at that time. I didn't, that would just kind of sounded sad to me. So I really wanted to create a life that was vibrant, that I love to party. I like to have fun. I like to be excited. And so to create space within the Chicago community has been like just amazing. And now to see like we're partnering with Lincoln Park Zoo for Oktoberfest, which is going to be 2,000 people this year, all
Wow.
entirely alcohol free. And to work with these people that are also as invested in creating alcohol free space that are not necessarily sober themselves has been just amazing. Like, some are, but some aren't, and to just see the community wanting to create this space, it has just been like a game changer. And so this year is finally where Chicago Yap, I feel I always have wanted it to come from the ground up. I want the people to like, so one of my friends organized a book club and, we have a coffee club and we have a brunch club. And like, I haven't been to any of those. And I think it's like awesome. Just, I want to go, but it's in the cities, so it's like it's quite a drive for me. But It's really cool to see it growing.
Oh,
And
that
it's
is
in real life, because I kinda like to stress to people, find your people. Find your people, find someone you can hang out with in real life. And I just think that's again, a game changer for sobriety sticking.
and if you don't, like, if you're in Michigan or in Idaho, like, what are some other ways you can find people to connect with in real life?
I would say you can connect online if you can't, like, well, if you're in real life and you're not in like a metropolitan area, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, or just
Yeah.
like, don't have a Boise AF or even just,
Yeah,
like finding people who get it. And a lot of the people who listen to my podcast don't relate to AA.
right.
And there's a lot of like I do love like the online thing too,
Me
but I
too. Me
do
too.
notice a lot of people are like, I want to find some people in real life. I want to find some friends.
Yes. I would just encourage people to keep trying. Like, go to like, try to do some like outdoor activities. Try to find anything that does not centralize around alcohol that's kind of offered in your community. If it's like a fitness thing or possibly something in the morning or a group walk or a group, something that's like activity based or fitness based or just not drinking based would be a great way to start. And then maybe start it yourself. Like,
Hmm?
just put it out there and just see what happens, because there are a ton of people that wanna connect. And so just maybe putting yourself out there a little bit, and I was, like, really late to the Instagram game, and I'm, very tiny on Instagram, but even social media, I mean, that is how I've connected with some of my best friends in sobriety, has been through online.
Me too. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's so weird.
It's so
I'm
cool though.
It is, and I truly was never on social media before Brave. So it's been all, like, all new for me.
Yeah. I was on Facebook. I wasn't on Instagram, but I remember starting my Instagram account in 2020 for
Yeah,
Alcohol Tipping Point, and I thought,
yeah,
there's probably only like 5 other
yeah,
alcohol-free sober accounts. Why was I wrong?
I
Because there's,
know.
like, this whole, like, just pocket world of
Totally.
people who are sober, sober curious, or
Yeah,
alcohol-free, or whatever
yeah,
terminology you
and
use.
and even if you're using social media, if you can tell where the person is from too, like, just
Mhm.
kinda, like, taking that step. Because I met a girl that is like 20 minutes from me. And intentionally reached out to her to be like, hey, I'm sober too. I live in Arlington. You know what I mean? And like, we're friends. Like, and it's super
That is
cool.
brave, Carrie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very brave.
But I just say, just keep trying. Keep
Yeah.
trying to find your people, and don't give up until you do, because they're there.
I feel like that "just keep trying and don't give up" could also be applied to, like, when you're changing your drinking.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
What are because you do coaching and whatnot, like, what are your other top tips for anyone who's looking to change their drinking?
So like we mentioned, having like finding someone else that's sober. That's like one of the first questions I ask people is, tell me about your network of people. Tell me
Mhm,
about, do you have a friend do you have a sober friend? Most people say no,
mhm.
but just starting small and like giving yourself grace. That was like one of the biggest things I learned when getting sober, because I was so hard on myself, is that my therapist was just like, please give yourself some compassion, give yourself some grace. Like, this is such a life change that you're making. Like, you don't need to do this to yourself, because I was like, so I just think like just giving yourself grace, having a toolbox. And this is funny. So when they say like a toolbox, like a metaphor, like what you're gonna have, like I made a in real life toolbox, or I made a
Yeah.
physical toolbox. It was a little yellow backpack, and I put in it like things that I thought might help me if I was triggered or whatever. It had definitely had Diet Coke in there. And I would here Coke. I love Diet Coke. I know. I'm so
Yeah,
bad
I
with
wanna
Diet
hear
Coke.
what else was in your backpack
Yeah, and
here.
I mean, I remember I'm not a big like aromatherapy person, but I had some aromatherapy in there. I had like a card from my parents in there. I had like things, I had something that my kids had like just in there so that if I was triggered, if I felt like I needed some extra security, I needed whatever. And I put that yellow backpack in my car. And I had that yellow backpack in my car and I could feel it was there. Like I just felt like I had this extra layer if whatever happened. And that was that was cool to me at that time. And I felt good about that. So, and then just really being like accountable to just somebody other than you and just because our brains are like, they will want to drink again. They will definitely want to drink again. And so the biggest thing that I do is I say it out loud. Always. If a drink ever crosses my mind for whatever reason, I say it out loud. And I encourage anybody that I meet to do the same. I don't care if it is the silliest reason. I do it to this day. If I'm on vacation, if I'm somewhere, I'll just be like, I really feel like I want to have that drink or that drink looks really good. And I just say it. And then I tell people if you don't have anybody to say it to, text it to somebody because the moment that you text it, say it, I feel like it's lost its power. I
Mm.
remember like one vacation I was on, I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I was at an all-inclusive. I had been to an all-inclusive before, but it hit me differently this time. And I just remember texting it to some other sober people and they were like, "You're in an effing all-inclusive. Of course you feel that way." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right." It completely changed my trip to just like get it out of my head. Like, I don't know why I like don't feel right. I don't, and I like that, it just like changed my trip. So I
Awesome.
don't
Those
know.
are those are awesome tips. I appreciate that. Well, tell people how they can find you and your future trips and all
Sure.
the stuff you have. I'll
Sure.
link to it too.
Okay, thank you. So they can find me at braverecoverycoaching.com and they can also find me at chicagoafcommunity.com. I managed all the emails and everything coming in from there. Yeah, and my next big thing that I have on the radar is to address the medical community. So I I'm I started something called Brave Medical Providers, and it's a new Instagram account. And I took a wellness position in my current hospital, and I wanna start with addressing the fact that medical providers have alcohol use disorder and just like hitting it head on. I want to address the patient stuff later, how we can like have more compassion and more resources for patients. But I want healthcare providers to understand they can get help. You can talk about it. There is safe space there and to just put it out there.
Oh, that's great. I'm gonna join that and look for that. And I've
Good.
had other nurses contact me too, and a lot of people are like, "What are some grassroots ways to like
Yeah.
affect
Yes.
bigger change or lobbying or whatever that looks like?"
Yes.
So
Exactly. Yeah. And the
excellent.
more we do it together, because I don't know how that looks. I just know it needs to be addressed. And so, yeah, I love grassroots.
Awesome. Well, good. I'm so glad that we got to meet.
Thank you. I'm so glad we got to meet too. Thank you for inviting me and having me.
Yeah, thank you so much and good luck in everything you're doing. It's
Okay, you
just
too.
awesome.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Alcohol Tipping Point podcast. Please share and review the show so you can help other people too. I want you to know I'm always here for you, so please reach out and talk to me on Instagram at Alcohol Tipping Point and check out my website, alcoholtippingpoint.com, for free resources and help. No matter where you are on your drinking journey, I want to encourage you to just keep practicing, keep going. I promise you are not alone and you are worth it. Every day you practice not drinking is a day you can learn from. I hope you can use these tips we talked about for the rest of your week, and until then, talk to you next time.